Hey Erin, alright, so this is your past life spread. So what we're going to do is look at where you were, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day with relationships and feelings. Over here is the death, the lesson learned, and we'll get hints of time throughout. Alright, so all I'm going to do is relay to you the imagery and impressions that are already coming through, and your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can, and I'll try to help however I can. So just keep in mind, a couple of ways you can make connections could be direct, where whatever comes through here you can directly resonate or connect with. Another way is through an opposite connection, where whatever comes through here will say, like, for example, if someone dies in a fire in another life, they could come back and be deathly afraid of fire and not want to be near a flame, like that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. And remember that it's for you to make connections with and resonate with. And whatever you may not connect with, you just want to tuck in the back of your mind for a later time, in case it comes up later. Like, it can come up days, weeks, months, even a year later, where it might be like, oh, that's what she was talking about, like that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. And okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward. You might want to grab a notebook and pen, because a lot of stuff usually comes through. So first, before we jump into here, which I guess we already can with this, I'll get to this card in a second. This feels like we are looking at a female aspect, and it feels like we were just like plunked down in what feels like either, I'm just gonna say England. It just feels like England, like hardcore England, like that, you know, every place has like an energy signature, and that's what it feels like we're going to. And it also feels like we're going to a time in England where there is, I feel like we'll get to it, but there's something about a war happening, but it's occurring mostly, it feels like, in the background, because it feels like where we are in England here, this aspect of you, it feels like they are a little bit isolated from the happenings of the city, we'll say. So this doesn't feel like London. This feels like, honestly, like the imagery of like a really large manor with a large property. And I want to say it's almost like it feels very much like we're looking at 1800s kind of thing. Like maybe like late 1800s, possibly, you know, going past the century mark. So already what you want to do possibly is Google and see what wars were going on in England at that time. But what we're looking at is a female aspect, and where they're placing me in her life feels like either midlife, or this is someone who feels old, like feels just like way older than her years, which indicates to me someone who had to grow up really quick, maybe didn't have a childhood how we view a childhood. So how you might connect with this in the first place could be, if one, maybe you have a connection to England, maybe you always wanted to go on vacation there or see it, or whenever you do, see photos of it, hear about it, read about it, maybe you feel a little tug, a pull, a connection. And that's okay if not, but that's how you would be making connections with this so far. This can also be about how you feel about living outside of a city, kind of like suburbs or countryside versus in the city. So someone living in this kind of environment, in your current life, you could be someone, either one, who's very comfortable in that more eased setting outside of the hustle bustle of a city, or the opposite would be if you came back and you're like, I want to live in an urban landscape where things are happening and moving all around me. So what we're really looking at here is how you connect to the pace of your life, like the pace of your life. Now, this could be coming up because if you are feeling high stress, uncomfortable, or like, I want to say if you're feeling pressured or rushed in your life, I guess that'd be stressed, it could very well be, based on this, the environment that you're in may not be conducive to your best state of mind. This aspect of you here is very efficient, by the way. I don't feel like this aspect is like aristocracy. Like, it doesn't feel like this is like someone, I feel like it's more like the mistress of the house, like the person who runs the entirety of the manor. Though I don't think this is, it could be, but like this could be the person, like the wife or whatever, who it is their property, but more so it feels like the woman who, like a woman that runs the whole entire property. Like she is in charge of all the servants, and she is in charge of all the menus, and she is in charge, you know, everything. So there's a lot of efficiency about this, a lot of organization about this aspect of you, a lot of, but there's also, again, high pressure, high stakes, always needing to be perfect. So in your current life, how do you feel about that? Are you connecting with the theme of perfectionism? Do you feel like it's never good enough? You're always tweaking things. You might have issues just settling on an idea or a decision, if that makes sense. Or if you're working on a project, tweaking, never good enough for you. Not others, but for you. On the other hand, this high perfectionism, high stress kind of thing could be an opposite connection where you came back into your current life and you need to relax. Like you're just like, I'm zoning out. I am just relaxing. I'm taking it easy this time around. Maybe I'll be a little messy. Maybe I'll just, you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. Like maybe you're an organized mess kind of deal. And that's really interesting when it comes to these past lives too, is when we see people and we're like, oh, they're lazy. It's like, well, you never know what they just went through. They could have just been like horribly like, just whatever, hurt in another life, and now they're just here to kind of take it easy. You know, you just never know. So how do you connect with that? The idea of perfectionism, high stress, this or that, and also the idea of you potentially, if that's the case, if you connect, and this can also be coming up later in your life too. So if this ever connects with you about high stress, finding yourself needing to make things perfect, or things feel like they're just not good enough, and you're pushing, if that is happening or happens, it is very likely it's the environment. And that could literally mean, like, if you live by, let's say, by the ocean, you might be someone that needs to be in the mountains, or vice versa, right? If you're in cold weather, you might be someone that needs to go to a dry heat, or vice versa. Like that kind of environmental climate kind of thing can very well affect all of this. So basically just check in with yourself and see about how, you know, your stress levels and what's going on. And also what you want to do is notice on certain days where it's a certain kind of weather or climate, how do you feel? How does it make you feel? So if you live somewhere, we'll say, let's say it's like, you know, like in Seattle where it's like mostly overcast. And then the sunny days come through, and all of a sudden high efficiency, feeling great. That's kind of very telling that, maybe I should go somewhere where the majority of the time it's this kind of weather, this kind of environment, so that I can feel this way most of the time, right? So that's all I'm saying is like, check and see what days, what weather causes you to feel or feel a certain way, and also kind of makes you feel like motivated and inspired, we'll say. Because it feels like that would be the key for what you want to look for as far as like moving towards something, which would be really interesting. We're talking about this if you're considering moving, or just moved, or looking to move, thinking about it. This would be a message of, hey, that's not a bad idea. Look around and see what place might call to you, like on this level where it's motivating, inspiring, that kind of thing. That's what you want to look for your environment. Okay, so what's interesting is the next card of what you did with the majority of your time. This is the take care of me card. And what this really connects with in this aspect is the whole property and the manner. This is an aspect of you. This is someone who it's not that she's selfless, it's that all of her focus is on taking care of her job, of the manor, of the property, of what needs to get done. So a lot of her focus is on, most of her focus is on that, and none or hardly any is on her. And I feel like that's a big deal in your current life, because I feel like that is part of your purpose here, is to learn self-love in the way of prioritizing yourself and learning to like refocus from away from you to you. Like focus on yourself, and like almost like I want to say, any energy you're expending on others' behalf to comfort others or make another person or people or group or whatever feel comfortable and everything that you would want to feel, refocus and bring it back to you. Make sure you are prioritizing yourself first, because then when you help others, there won't be resentment. when you fill your love bucket first, so to speak, it could spill out to others versus running on fumes. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. This also feels like we're looking at someone so focused on the caretaking of a place, not a person. So this could speak to you in a way where you might connect in feeling disconnected from, I want to say, caretaking of people, in the sense of like almost like an example. This isn't per se like you. I'm saying this is an example would be if you have a kid and you feel disconnected from maternal instincts, and you'd be like, why don't I feel that? Like that kind of thing. It would stem from here. So I'm not saying that's the case, but use that as an example for other things where you may feel disconnected from what you feel might be instincts that would otherwise guide you in a certain situation, and you feel disconnected. It feels like because this aspect of you was so focused on a house and meals and everything that's not human. And it's really interesting too, because it's all to serve the master of the house, right? It's all to serve the whoever this is, Duke, or whatever it is. But yet it's like there's no real relationship with you and the owner of this place that you take care of. The relationship is with the property. So on a random different note, you might be someone that is into real estate. You might be into property. You might be, it just might be interesting to you in the sense of like, you might look up photos on Pinterest of houses. Actually, if you've ever been drawn to the manors, like in England, those big manors, the sprawling manors, those mansions, whatever it might be, Hearst Castle, here in the US kind of thing, that would be a connection as well as I want to say interior decorating. And even this can even go like, you want to make little connections we're doing here, like you might be interested, you might like the idea of laying menus out. You might like little details in your environment, on a property kind of thing. So it's basically, what is your connection with property? And this could also be coming up in the case that you're wondering, if I want a new hobby, or should I change careers, or this or that, where would I go? What direction should I take? If you're looking for that kind of thing, like something new, based on this, you might want to look into something, either hospitality, like oddly what's coming to mind is like opening a Airbnb, a bed and breakfast or something like that, but like hospitality, or interior decorating, or event planning, quite frankly, because it feels like every day was just a big event every day. And it's like this person, there's something about this person that just was like boom, 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 like did not let exhaustion get to her. So we're looking at someone who is very mentally and emotionally strong, but in being so strong, there's also, again, a disconnect from, I want to say, a disconnect to her own spirit, kind of. Like, that's a kind of a harsh way to put it. It's more like walls are up, like not allowing pleasure. There we go. That's what this feels like. It feels like this person, this aspect, didn't allow pleasure. So are you someone that limits your pleasure? And this can be in all ways of life. Do you ever feel like when something is too good to be true, or something is too good, or something feels too good, or something like that, you have to balance it out, or even it out with something neutral, or limit yourself from experiencing it even more fully, that kind of thing? So it's this would be a message for you to check in with yourself as to where you are limiting your own pleasure, and to take steps, if it feels right to you, to take steps to take away those limitations or blocks to your pleasure. And this could be mindsets, like long program things where you might have been growing up being taught you have to punish yourself to get this, or you have to work this hard in order to do this, like you have to pay your dues in order to have a certain kind of pleasure, whether it's like physical pleasure, or whether it's financial gain pleasure, or whether it's just having like social fun pleasure, like all kinds of pleasures. Where are you limiting yourself? Where is it cut off? And what programming is there that is making you limit yourself? And that's what you need to look at, your thought patterns, your emotional patterns. of where you cut it off, where you limit, so that you can start to allow more access to that and deprogram from whatever it is that is making you be that way, okay? And again, this is only if you connect. So just keep that in mind, because it feels like this life is meant to be more pleasure-filled due to this life being, the pleasure being cut off, where the only pleasure is in completing another day of excellence. And that's, you know, that's a different kind of pleasure. So it could be that you may be an overachiever. Direct connection would be if you're an overachiever, if you're a hard worker, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that it's important that you balance that out with a more relaxed pleasure as well, a more easing of the mind as well. Because this would indicate that you would be someone who is strategic and on top of your stuff, and almost like someone that would have a plan B, C kind of thing. If like you're always ready for whatever. So it feels like because of that, if you connect with the direct connection of that in your current life, it would be time to ease off and relax a bit and not view that as slacking. Don't see relaxation as slacking if in the case you do, you know, see it that way. Redefine it. You have the power to rewrite your narrative, redefine these things. And I feel like that would be important for you if you connect with that, okay? So keep making connections where you can. It can also be that in this life you are here and find yourself caretaking of a person because there was no person here, so you didn't get the experience of being a caretaker to a person. You were caretaking a property. I mean, ultimately, yeah, it was to serve the master of the house or whatever, but it's different when you're rather than caretaking for like a loved one, we'll say. So if you do find yourself in a caretaking role, and that could be a mother as well, it is for you to learn how to do that with a human being versus just property here. So if you find yourself in that role or position of being a caretaker, even as a mother or a daughter to her mother or a mother to a kid or whatever, it would just be for you to experience what it feels like, to get used to it. And also, if you ever feel like you're not doing it well enough, like if you do connect with this, if you're not doing it well enough or you feel like there is no connection or whatever it is, it's because there was a lack of connection here and you are here in this life to learn the connection. So don't be frustrated with yourself if you feel like you don't pick up on something quickly or naturally, because that could be exactly why you're here living, to learn how it feels for something to not feel quite natural, but knowing that that is the direction you want to go in and to take baby steps in it. So your job is not to judge yourself or feel frustrated if you feel like you're not keeping up with other people where you see them so naturally being a mother or naturally being even a best friend or naturally being a great sibling, whatever it might be. If it feels unnatural for you, that's perfectly fine. Don't judge yourself. It's very good if you're aware of it, so you can start taking baby steps. And in the meantime, you can be, your inner dialogue would be like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, I see, I feel this. Oh, this is very, like, kind of be the observer as you move forward so that you're not frustrated or judging yourself, if that makes sense, and if you connect. So just keep making connections with that however you can. Also, a random thing coming up, if you want a visual of what I feel like this would be like that you might understand is if you've ever seen the movie The Secret Garden with Maggie Smith, it would be Maggie Smith's job, okay? And if not, go Google it and you'll see, or even watch it if you haven't. But that's what this kind of feels like, quite frankly. So let's see. Okay, so let's go to the first important day here, okay? And keep making connections where you can. First important day here is the marriage card. The marriage card goes with the friends card here, and the feeling is neutral, okay? So what we are witnessing here, what you're doing, this seems to be the biggest event that you have ever put on in your career here on this property. And it feels like the master of the property is getting married. It feels like he's marrying a business partner's daughter kind of thing, kind of more about merging companies or merging wealth rather than a love marriage. So I also feel like there's something about this that suits your whole persona here. And it also, though, engages or contributes to the disconnect between property and people. This is an unusual thing coming up for me. I haven't got this before, but there is something about disconnect between property and people. However you can connect with that, I feel like that is a big theme here. And I feel like this theme has to do with what's going on in your life, or what may go on, or what has gone, whatever it is, about feeling disconnected or not easily connecting with people in some way. Almost like it's almost like the feeling of choosing people in your life because you can check off a checklist about them, rather than feel with your heart that you want to embrace them. Like on a abstract level where you don't know why you love someone or like someone, you just do. You might have a hard time understanding those feelings, and it may be very much easier for you to be like, oh, well, this person checks this box and this box and this box, so they meet the criteria and we can be friends or lovers or this or that. Okay, there's nothing wrong about that at all, but if you connect with that, it would come from here, and you would be in your current life with a purpose to learn to bridge that gap, to learn to feel a connection with someone based on your intuition and your heart and your soul versus the checkbox, if that makes sense. It could be that in this current life of yours, you're all intuition, you're all heart, and you're all lovey-lovey, and you're all connection and all that because you didn't experience here. So you could already be there. But I'm just talking about what we're seeing here. So basically this big event, which by the way, again, event planning, if you've ever been interested in event planning, I feel like this would be it'd be lucrative for you. But this is a huge day. It feels like there's a lot of people coming. It's the largest gathering this aspect of you has had to oversee, and there's pride about it, and an honor in it, and taking honor in her work, in her duties. So we're looking at someone who prizes duty, honor, and kind of like duty, honor, and like work ethic. So in your current life, either one, that is what could be part of who you are, is the things that you value come down to work ethic, and what we were talking about here, that might be very valuable to you. On the other hand, it could be opposite, where you just might be like, screw that, I just, if you're nice, I like you, you know what I mean? Like, you don't judge maybe it's just what you judge your friends by, or the people that you like, is by something totally different. It could just be like their free spirit versus their work ethic, you see? So it could be very different. So but what we were looking at is how you connect with the idea of how you value others. What do you value in others? What are your values? Is it the work ethic, the dutifulness, the reliability, or is it the creativity, the spur of the momentness, the spontaneity of someone, the uniqueness of some, right? And it could be all the above, but this speaks to someone who highly prizes and values when people are responsible, reliable, they get their duties done, task driven, efficiency, solution oriented, like that kind of thing. Kind of like left brain, you would say. Like this person's very left brain. Nothing wrong with that. Just that's what we're seeing here. So this is an interesting day, because what's happening to her is that she is having, for the first time, she has a little mental struggle. The mental struggle happening here is, one, she's putting forward the most effort she has ever done to create this beautiful event, as though it would be for like her own daughter or whatever it might be. At the same time, she understands that it's unlikely that she will get credit for it. It's unlikely that people will look at her and be like, that's the person who did this all. And she's struggling for the first time because there is a small part of her leaking through that wants recognition, where her whole life she's just been, under the radar and behind the scenes, taking the servant quarters, like everything like that kind of deal. Not getting, basically getting paid, but not being recognized for such hard work. And this event is the first, and I want to say probably only time, where she is having an internal mental struggle with feeling a new feeling, which is wanting recognition, which is also a big no-no for people who are in the servant industry, so to speak. So we're looking at her little spirit, her little soul, this aspect of you, feeling a need for something for the first time. A need beyond food and shelter and to, maintain her job. So this could connect with you in your current life where you have come back into this life in order to do things that would cause people to recognize you. That can be taken a couple ways though. It could be 1, by your excellent work that you're recognized. 2, by maybe your physical beauty that you're recognized. 3, by your behavior, which could be actually either disruptive or excellent to be recognized. We're basically looking at your connection of the theme, the concept of where in your life, what is being done in your life, how do you hold yourself, what are you doing for there to be recognition? In what way? It'd be very interesting to know that, but look at your life, take stock, and note the places where you notice cause people to recognize you for certain things. Now, this could be another thing where you might be someone where you're triggered when you are not given credit for what you've done, like given credit for work, even if it's group work. If you're the one shouldering the group work, not giving credit or full credit. So if you get triggered by not getting credit, it's because of this, because you didn't get credit here, and you're back to feel what it feels like to get credit and recognition for something in your life. It doesn't have to be a huge achievement. It can be. It could be you write a book and you get it could be anything. It can also be though, just in your family where you are the one who is the most popular or socially, popular or smartest or cleverest or funniest, whatever it might be. Where in your life, what part of your life is it where you are the top dog, so to speak, where people know, oh yeah, she's good at this, like she's known for this or whatever it might be. And notice, even if it's something that maybe people would find disruptive or not so good, whatever that means, do you take pleasure in it anyway? Basically, do you take pleasure in where you can get credit for whatever it may be? Or it's credit, it's reputation, recognition, and attention. So if you find that if you grew up, if you were, even from when you were young to now to later, doesn't matter, if you are someone that wants attention, and sometimes it's hard for us to admit that because it sounds a certain way, like egotistical or whatever, but it's not, it's human. If you want attention in whatever way, it's because this life here, you were not given attention at the one time you definitely earned it, but also the one time you actually felt like you deserved the credit, okay? Because this is a huge affair. This is a huge event. It's almost like the event of the season, and you pull it off, and it is awesome. So keep making connections where you can when it comes to this, all right? So let's go to the next important day. So the graduation card comes up. Yeah, it could be academia, but oftentimes it's graduation, like leveling up in emotionality, mentality, physicality, spirituality. There's always, it's basically just a leveling up. And the relationship here is family. And here we have loneliness. All right, so big thing that comes through here is this is you near the, like, not the end of your life, but kind of like, getting much older, realizing you don't have children. You spent all of your time on your work, but understand too that it was because you're a product of the times. This is what was done. When you are the mistress of a house, the head of the house, the head butler, whatever it is, there are things you give up. And it feels like this is what you knew you'd be giving up, but you didn't know later on how it would feel to have given up on that or let go of that or not, or say you didn't need it later on when it feels like, oh, if I knew the feelings I would feel now, I don't know if I would have done this back then. So what we're looking at here simply is a big message of regret. And this is a message for you to make sure that you are doing what you want to do in your life so that when the day comes, when you're on your deathbed and you look back, you don't regret not taking action or moving in a direction that your heart and soul pulled you at, but you said, no, because you may have been putting things in front of your desires, needs, wants, such as what others might think or what others wanted, or catering to others, people please, whatever it might be, where you said no to yourself and yes to others, or just said no to yourself for no reason, just because you just maybe used to say no to yourself. But this is a clear message of making sure you live your life so that you don't look back regretting not living your life according to how you wanted to live it. Okay? I just feel like that's a big message here. And that's why the family card is here too. The lonely card is here too. It just feels like her family ended up being the servants at the house, and they respected her, but they respected her and maybe loved her in some way, but respect is not necessarily love, you know? And when you are in need of comfort, of like a hug or a handhold, you want that to be from someone that loves you rather than just respects you. So I feel like that too is coming up for you to just have for food for thought, is the idea of respect versus love, and what is more important to you, or how do those concepts play into your life, and how do you want them to play into your life, understanding that you have the power to utilize respect and love however you wish in your life. It's about the boundaries you have up and the boundaries you bring down to let that happen, if that makes sense. Almost like the idea of knowing someone at work and then putting the walls down to take it to the next level of becoming friends, or dating, or what, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Like, where's the line? And understanding you have the power to cross the line if it feels right, or to keep that line there if it feels right. You know what I mean? So it's more about food for thought. But it is a leveling up, because it is a huge realization. Even if you're not able to make amends of it, like you can't just like form a family right away. You here at least, you know, which, oh, by the way, in your current life, if you came back and you're like, I want a family, I want to have a family, I want kids, I want to get married, I want this, I want that, you know, the whole kit and caboodle. If that's what you wanted, by the way, if that's ever been part of your life, your dreams, so to speak, or if you are right now in a family and you're happy, that kind of thing, it would be because of the lack here. Or you could have come back to experience more independence, but on your own terms. Or it could be that even right now, you might be someone, if you don't have a family, kids or whatever like that, you might yearn for that. And that would, so it's all about, it all comes back to this, however you're living your life. It doesn't mean you're supposed to go and have kids if you don't have kids and you don't want kids, but it is supposed to mean that maybe living your life independently in a way where you still have love, more so than this aspect did, where you have the love in addition to the respect, where here is just respect. All right, so keep making connections where you can here, and we're going to go ahead and move to the death card. Now this is the water card, and we get this for all sorts of things, you know, drowning and lost at sea and blah blah blah, all that. This simply feels like you died very old in a rainy season, almost like I want to say you were thirsty and you died thirsty. So it's not like, you know, that's not what killed you, but you just died thirsty, like wanting water. So it could be in your current life that you get dehydrated very easily. It could be in your current life that you love water and you like to drink a lot of water, that you're always thirsty. Or it could simply just be a message where you know you need to drink more water and to make sure that you drink water. And that could be helpful in so many ways. So just keep connecting to the water card as much as you can. And now we're going to go to, hold on. Yeah. Because we did the time already, right? Where it feels like we're looking at, I mean, this feels like almost like bridging 1900s, which is really funny because the last reading I had felt like that too, but it feels like we're bridging mid to late 1800s, possibly into the 20th century, but again, look up and see if there was a war during that time, and then also how you feel about war, but it was in the distance kind of thing. So bringing that up, it could be in your current life that you might want to be more interactive when it comes to war. Not like, I mean, yeah, you could be part of the army or whatever and join the forces, that kind of thing. That's very much a part of it, but more so about being aware of it, like keeping more abreast of it, more abreast of the news of it, if that makes sense. But not necessarily, just, that's what's coming up. But anyway, all right, the lesson. So the lesson here is enlightenment. And basically, we are seeing enlightenment in what you might think is a subtle way. Like here, realizing she wants the credit. It seems like a small thing, but that's a huge deal. That is a huge mental shift and emotional shift for someone of her job title and her, where she lives and the time she lives in, what she does. That's a huge deal. She's not supposed to feel that, you know what I mean? At least in her thoughts, like, I'm not supposed to feel this. What is this? Why do I feel this way? We're looking at the feeling of injustice by a servant. That is very unusual. That's a big deal, you see? So this also, I feel like, is coming up in the case that you in your current life, that you make things smaller than they are for you. Make sure you are not becoming smaller for other people. Don't make small or light of a situation if it matters to you. If your feelings are hurt, don't make it smaller than it is. You're allowed to express yourself. And which, by the way, you might have problems expressing yourself because this aspect is not allowed to. Nothing, her opinion does not matter. So if you find that you are in that state of mind where your opinion is not worthy or doesn't matter compared to, let's say, a man's or, your parents or other people, whatever it might be, this would be a big thing for you to be aware of and to take steps to express yourself more and how you feel and your opinion, So just keep that in mind just in case you connect with that. But the other thing here too is the big realization of priorities and how she feels like she probably deprioritized, but also realizing that as a product of the times, she did the best she could with what she had. So she actually had a really successful life. This aspect is very successful, but at the end of things, she sees where things might be more valuable than she thought, like other things, like things she did not give value to before, she gives much more weight to at the end. Things like that, like I wish if I knew then what I know now. So we're looking at a lesson in hindsight, and again, it's just for you to keep in mind that little thought of, if I don't do this thing that I want to do, will I regret it in the end? If you kind of have that thought as an affirmation every day, I guarantee you're going to live bigger. You know what I mean? So just consider that and sit with that. But this is an enlightening life. Even if it's not spiritually enlightened in that, kind of way, it is spiritually enlightening, just not like with, law of attraction and magic and stuff like that, but this is spiritual enlightenment. And I almost want to say, like, that's important too, to realize that when you become more in touch with your emotions and your feelings and your thought patterns and all that, more self-aware, that is spiritual enlightenment. That's not just emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence goes hand in hand with spiritual ascension and enlightenment, period. So that's why it's important for you to feel what you feel and also take steps to express it. So anyway, keep making connections where you can with this, because I feel like this enlightenment card, this lesson, is just continuing into your current life. And that's just one lesson, there's many, but this is a big one, is to keep taking the steps and also use what happened before, now that you're aware of it, with what you connect with at least, use what you know in order to help fuel your progress in your enlightenment, so to speak, your spiritual journey, all right? And as a last note, I wanted to add a couple of things that are coming through in regards to, we're talking about enlightenment, but also like growth in general and how you can help yourself with that a bit more. And sorry if you can hear that crow in the background, there is a crow. The idea of connecting with your inner child, because we're looking at an aspect here that is very rigid and very serious and very adult. So I don't know if that is something in your life that you're aware of, is perhaps the idea of adulting, right? So does that feel exhausting, or is that something you take on like a prize, like you're really good at that, so to speak, you know what I mean? But it's almost like, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, it's just about the idea of, do you allow your inner child out enough? Do you play? Do you have fun? Do you approach? It's almost like Yeah, so it's almost like this thing coming through about how you approach situations. And there's such a different energy when you approach various situations with an air of, I want to say, like, seriousness versus playfulness. Even though I understand serious situations do require seriousness, I understand that, but it's almost about you being aware that your emotional status can affect the outcome of situations that you approach, depending on how you're approaching it. So I almost want to say, if there is something going on in your life that is a serious subject, like maybe somebody is sick, maybe there's, you know, you're separating from a friend or whatever it is, how you approach it, there is a way that we have been taught to approach it in society, which is very rigid and serious and heavy, versus almost like, I want to say, how would a kid at heart approach things, if that makes sense. So it's almost like a message of tapping into the kid at heart. And this is, of course, only if you connect with this, but it's just based on the aspect here being so serious and rigid and adult. And this could also be adding into the idea of wanting to create a family, and that would bring in the childish energy or childlike energy when you have children around you. But oftentimes too, if you have kids around you, you get very adult. And it almost like, for some people, it makes them even more serious because they turn into the task manager and forget to have fun. And I want to say forget to see through the eyes of a child in order to be with the kids, like, if that makes sense. Almost like learning from the kids. But yeah, this would just be, this card for growth's purpose would be to be in touch with your inner child, or it's almost like a visitation or visualization with your younger self, your younger version. And this is only if you connect, though. If you feel like your childhood was not like not childish, but you know what I mean, that where you had to grow up quick, if that's the case, you can do these amazing exercises where you visualize yourself speaking with yourself at that age and giving that version of you everything it needs and wants, whether it's you saying I love you or you, like, whatever the conversation, wherever the conversation goes, right? So these are just little exercises to do when we're looking at someone who needs to reconnect with the inner child. I also feel like, wait, there's something else there. So it was the inner child. And then it was the rigidity of this person, like so rigid that even admitting to herself that she wanted credit, it was almost like pulling teeth on herself. You know, like, oh God, like, oh my God, I can't believe I want this. Do I want this? No. Like in denial. That's what it is. So make sure, just be aware that if you find yourself fighting yourself on certain things that have to do with you perhaps being a bit more flexible with yourself or the situation at hand, that would be a situation you want to be highly aware of, as far as what we were circling back to, what we were talking about on how you approach it. So that's what I feel like we're like putting the puzzle pieces together specifically here with any situation you come across, whether it's something that comes to mind now or in the future that has to do with what we were talking about before, as far as how to approach a certain subject or a situation. It would be the kind of situation where you feel yourself fighting against yourself because it requires you to lighten up and be more flexible, if that makes sense. I know lighten up can be taken a certain way. Don't take it that way. I'm just talking about like loosen up. There you go. Yeah, like loosen up a little and be a little more flexible, and be aware of when that's happening. And the approach, and approach that situation with playfulness. Try being a kid at heart. Get in touch with the inner child, and take that approach to these kinds of situations where you notice that you are fighting yourself because it's requiring you to be more flexible. And this, of course, is only if you connect. If you connect with flexibility and rigidity in your life, how that connects with you, okay? It could be that you came back into this life and you are flexible and lighthearted and your inner child is sparkling through, and that's perfectly great, and that would be the opposite connection, and that would come from a life where it's very rigid. So you see, it could be either way, but just food for thought. Take it how it lands, so to speak. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. So there is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections with what we talked about, and thanks for letting me read you.